We just got some new analytics about our podcast, Odyssey House Journals, and this is sort of interesting. It is stupid for me to ask you guys, but where do you think the number one country in the world outside of the U.S. would be for listening or watching to the podcast? Just throw out a guess.
I'm going to say Australia or New Zealand because that's where other Odysseys are.
Well, that's a good guess, but it's not right.
Russia.
That's a good guess, but it's not right.
I don't know why.
Hong Kong.
No way.
Isn't that weird?
That's cool.
Hey.
I'm trying to figure out why people watch or listen to this podcast, and when the analytics come in, you just wonder why.
Yeah.
Hong Kong. Oh, well, so hello, Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I hope China doesn't ever. I shouldn't get political here, should I? Okay, welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm your host, Randall Carlisle, my co-host, Nicole Slack, and our guest today, who I would call a prime example of an angel of mercy, Ellen Murray. Would you call yourself that?
No, I'm not that. I'm too humble.
Well,
I try, though.
Well, and the podcast that will have aired the week before this one was one of your clients, and she absolutely adores you.
Yes.
And had a wonderful story about the success you've had at your mental health facility with her and a bunch of other people as well. Yes. So describe what happens at a mental health facility that's part of a behavioral health treatment program that focuses both on mental health as well as substance use. And I should say that Ellen's in charge of it and has been ever since we opened it.
Yeah. Yeah, I opened it in 2020. We really had to change the program to be its own program within Odyssey, to keep it like Odyssey, though. We really focus on the mental health aspect, but we still keep it as a treatment community. They still do encounters. They still take care of the house. They all learn how to cook. We really focus on their mental health, and it takes them a little bit longer to go through the program because of different aspects of their life. Some of them have had really bad PTSD, not saying that others haven't, but it takes them longer to process it because of their disorders, whether it's schizophrenia or bipolar or depression, because we also have to deal with those while they're dealing with being in recovery and coming off drugs and learning how to be sober and learning how to handle their mental health. So it's really trying to combat many things all at once.
It sounds like an impossible task almost, that you have somebody come in and, just using it as an example, is hooked on some kind of opioid, but also is bipolar or schizophrenic or whatever. I mean, how do you go about treating somebody like that? Don't you have to deal with the mental part of it while at the same time thinking about the substance use? Or
yeah. So luckily we have Martinell in our back pocket, which has the MAT program, the medical assisted treatment, and they do really well with the Suboxone and stuff to help with opioid, that side of it. And then we have our own psych provider that comes to our facility twice a week to work with our clients and get them on the right meds. And they're very knowledgeable and can really help us get that client stabilized pretty quickly. Sometimes it does take a little bit longer to find the right meds. And so it takes longer for us to be able to really get into working with them before we just have to stabilize them. Depending on how they come in. Sometimes they come in and it takes us a month or so just stabilizing them.
Sure.
Before we can do any other work.
How do you make it? You work in admission around admissions, Nicole. How do you make the determination that somebody should go to our mental health facility as opposed to our other facilities that are also behavioral health facilities, and are also dealing with substance use? I mean, how do you make the distinction?
They meet with the therapist at the admissions building, and the therapist determines that. And they usually, to my knowledge, if they are wondering, or they can bounce off these guys what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's with the therapist at the building, because there's also, when people come into admissions, there's also is this drug-induced psychosis, or is this an actual mental health condition?
How do you tell the difference?
I think that's why the therapist is there, because I'm definitely not a clinician. But the therapist there gets to do that. And sometimes maybe we get it wrong, but rarely. But sometimes it's drug-induced, and sometimes we send them to go detox and see how they are when they come back, and see if maybe that's clearing up. But for the most part, there are certain criterias that shout it out that they are mental health.
And Ellen, I've got to ask you personally, how did you get involved in this? What's your background?
So I'm an addict. I'm in recovery.
Well, we all are, right? Nicole and I as well, yes.
I entered Odyssey House Parents Program June 26, 2015, with my 2 children, which is also my sobriety date.
2015?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going on 10 years next year. Way to go.
Thank you. I went through that program and Voyagers. I was in 19 months. I graduated in February 2017, and I stayed connected with Odyssey. I went back to parents' house and gave back a lot, sat in groups, did all that. And then I went and worked at a different treatment, Deer Hollow, and they focused on PTSD. So I learned a lot there. And then Christina Zaidow, she reached out and asked me to apply for this position, to be the program manager. So I looked into it, and I really liked what it had to offer. I liked the way the program was going to be. I lost my word. Structured. And so I applied, and I did like 2 interviews and got the job.
And we were breaking new ground, because that's our first mental health facility.
Yep.
And the amazing thing, and it shows what a need there is in society for facilities like the one you run, is we have a waiting list that is how long? I mean, months and months and months, right?
Yes.
And for both our women's and our men's mental health facility, and there's such a need out there. And I guess it's not great that you're in such demand for your facility, but it does show the need.
Well, when we opened, we doubled the amount of beds available for mental health in Salt Lake County.
With 16.
Yeah, yeah. And then we opened men's about a year and a half later, I believe. And men's wait list is actually longer than ours. I was going to say it's about a year. Ours is about 6 months. Theirs is a year.
You know, and that kind of thing makes me angry when I hear stuff like that, because if I'm addicted to some substance and I have some severe mental health issue, and I say, okay, I want help, and then I'm told that I have to wait a year to get that help. Well, what the hell am I going to? I mean, so I'm out on the street. You know, anything I could die in that time period. I could commit a bunch of crimes. I could do a whole bunch of stuff. It's a sad commentary.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard for us because we also don't have the housing options to get them out, to transition out as well. Like, there's not enough housing options for people going out into sober living and transitioning out. we really need more of that all around, not just for mental health, but for the SUD programs as well.
Why is that? Do you think people just don't care, or there's
Funding.
what is it?
Funding.
Which has to come from either insurance
federal.
companies or the government,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we do have some. I mean, we have grants that get a lot of our SUD clients into sober
Yeah.
living and help them out for the first 3 months, and then the next 3 months a little bit. There is some, but with the mental health houses, I think it's tough for them to go from mental health treatment into regular SUD, sober living.
Yeah.
It's a really big adjustment for them.
It is. And we have a little less options with our clients than the SUD programs have, just because of our clientele.
What do you mean?
We can't send them to all the sober livings because they aren't accepted at all. Where there's
Because of their mental health situation. Let me ask you this.
But I do know Adam is really fighting for it.
Adam is the CEO of Odyssey House, and we've fought for stuff like this for a long time, and a lot of people are fighting for stuff like this, but it has to be approved by the legislature and by the people running the programs at the federal and state levels. And what I hear from them, and this is what makes me a little angry. I heard it during the presidential debates recently, and I hear it from the governor's task force, is when they talk about substance use, they talk so much about cracking down on the people selling this stuff. And it's ever since Prohibition, if there's a demand, somebody's going to figure a way to supply, because it's a very lucrative business. And you can bust millions of pounds of fentanyl coming into our country, but there's still going to be millions of pounds more coming into our country. So, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm certainly not a therapist, but it seems to me we need to work more on the demand side as opposed to the supply side. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would agree with that. I would agree. I think there really needs to be more options for treatment, and what happens after treatment. I think there's a lot of people that want help. They just don't have the chance to get it because, I mean, we're one of 3 or 4 programs in Salt Lake County that take Medicaid, and we're always full. Valley's always full. And so their options are so slim. If you only have Medicaid or you have no insurance, that it feels hopeless.
And people at that stage already feel hopeless.
Yes. Yep.
And they're treating their mental health issues with drugs.
Yeah. Yep.
They're treating themselves. So it's not
Right. So
just a bum on the street or whatever you want to try to peg someone as. It's them treating themselves because they don't know how to handle their mental health.
they're self-medicating.
It's the only way.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's way easier to buy stuff on the street to treat what you perceive as your mental health condition than to get into a program.
I have jets.
And cheaper.
Yeah. I was going to say, I have jets that are struggling. They're jets in outpatient that are struggling to get jobs because if they get a good enough job, they lose their Medicaid.
Yes.
And if they lose their Medicaid, they can't afford all their mental health medication. And if they lose their mental health, then they can't have a job. And so it's this cycle of just needing more support.
And fentanyl pills, I understand, are like cheap as can be now. They're like $3 or $5 a pill or something.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, that's
Been a long time.
That's what I've been told, because the supply
But they probably
is
are.
great.
Yeah.
And it used to be, before fentanyl, when you bought even a fake Oxy, they were like $30 to $50 a pill.
You were paying $1 a milligram at one point with Oxy.
Yeah, that's what I was paying 10 years ago.
And that's what you were hooked on?
Yeah, that's what brought me to Odyssey, but I started with crack at 15.
At 15?
Yeah.
How did you get started with crack at 15?
A boy, introduced me to it. And I just wanted to be loved and accepted. And so he's like, here, let's try this. I was already like smoking weed and drinking, and went out with him, and he's like, hey, do you want to try some coke? And I said, no, I promised I wouldn't snort anything up my nose. And he said, no, we're going to smoke it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, then it's okay.
Then it's okay.
That's not so
We're just
bad.
going to smoke it.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it and him at the same time. And that led into crank and meth till I was 21. And I stopped meth. So I put down the pipe and I picked up the bottle, and I was an alcoholic then for 10 years.
Well, you're not prejudiced against one drug or another.
No, I like them all. I like them all.
Did you ever put anything up your nose?
Yeah, I ended up.
See, you didn't even stay true.
No,
Caved.
that's the oxys. That's what my ultimate love was them.
Oxys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was fentanyl around when you were dealing with addiction?
It was not around like it is now. It was a prescription, and I did try it. Like I stole my stepdad's. It didn't affect me. Like I didn't feel it. So but that was my only that was my only chance to try fentanyl. It wasn't out like it is now.
What brought you to your knees, deciding that you needed help?
I was exhausted, for one. I was sick of going through withdrawals because I was running out of options to buy my pills. I never did heroin. It was never really offered to me. I was always either doing methadone or Suboxone or pills. And I was getting money from wherever I could. I was stealing money from my mom, my stepdad. I was stealing his meds. I was just trying so hard. And I was a single mom at that point. And I was exhausted. And my mom called me one day and said, I'm done. I'm sick of you stealing my money. I can't take it anymore. You need to get out, and I'm going to keep your kids. So you either go to treatment or you get out. And at that point, she had said things like that before, but I never believed her. This time I knew she was like, I believed her. I knew she was done. So I called around, and the first few places I tried kept saying Odyssey, and I never really knew what Odyssey was. So I looked it up, and I was looking for like outpatient to have that like back door, right?
Yeah.
And to not be away from my kids. They were only 1 and 4 at the time. And I looked up and I found the parents program, and I couldn't believe that I found that. And so I called, and they said, oh, we can see you tomorrow. And I said, no, it has to be today. I can't wait until tomorrow. And they said, okay, come in. And so I came in, and we were doing paperwork and all kinds of things. And I was like, okay, what's the next step? And she's like, we'll come back tomorrow. We'll first go get in a methadone step down, and then come back tomorrow and you'll move in. I was like, oh, okay.
And you did?
And I did. Went to Project Reality and got on, at this point, we didn't have MAT treatment. Did a taper off methadone for 2 weeks and moved into parents' house the next day, not knowing what I was walking into. I'm thinking, okay, it's 6 weeks. Like, 'cause that's what my last treatment was at outpatient. And start talking to the girls, and they're like, yeah, I've been here like a year. I've been here like 18 months. And I'm like, what the hell did I just get myself into?
But you stayed.
But I stayed. Because the moment I walked through those doors, I felt relief. I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. I cry every time I talk about it. It was one of the happiest moments of my life because I knew I had found something. Even just walking through the doors, not knowing anything about it, just felt like I could do this. Didn't have to fight anymore. Even though recovery is a daily thing, it's a lot easier. A lot easier. And I walked into a house full of women. I had major trust issues with women because I had been bullied and just beat up by women, like girls, all growing up. And it was rough at first. I wanted to leave all the time, but there was amazing part-time staff and grads that came in that worked and that kept me there. And the staff was amazing. And I stayed and worked through it. And it was the best thing I ever did in my life. The moment I got my graduation certificate was bigger than when I got my college degree. That it was next to having my children.
So how long did you end up staying?
I was in the house. I lived in the house for 6 months. My funding ran out, so I moved out to trans and did day treatment for 3 months. And then I was a Voyager for a year. So I did 19 months altogether.
Did you ever think when you walked in that house that you would be a grad, a
No.
sap, running this house with like
No,
these amazing women?
no. If you told me 10 years ago that I'd still be sober, I would have laughed in your face. I didn't know there was a grad. I was like, and I don't need to graduate. I walked myself in there. As going through. But as soon as someone that was a previous grad, he was in the program with me, and I really looked up to him because he was a grad. Even though he came back, I really looked up to him and respected him. He talked about the SAPs, the self-actualized person, the highest award you can get as a graduate. I was like, okay, I want that. I want one of those. And so that was my goal. And then I went to a gala, one of the graduation galas. And I was like, okay, I want that. I want that. And an Odyssey Day, just seeing everybody at Odyssey Day, because it was just a few weeks after I moved in that we went and had an Odyssey Day. And it was like, this is amazing. Like seeing all the people in Odyssey come together. And that was still when Odyssey was pretty small, was just a drive, a motivation for me.
You drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I drank the Kool-Aid.
You're a grad, you're a SAP, you run the grads group, you
Yes, I
run the Women's Mental Health House.
Yes.
What is next?
President and CEO of Odyssey. Adam, watch out.
No, I really like where I'm at right now. I haven't really thought about what's next. I'm pretty happy where I'm at. I'm just trying to raise my girls right now. And
How old are they now?
they are now 13 and 10. And they were 1 and 4 when I moved into the program. And parents program is not a joke. It is probably one of the harder programs in Odyssey because of the kids.
Yeah.
Like you're getting judged on your parenting, and that is not fun.
As much as they try to handle those situations with grace and all that, it's still someone judging you on parenting.
Yeah.
It would be so
Sure.
hard.
You picture this. If you don't understand our parents program, you have how many? What's the capacity?
I think it's 16 parents.
Parents and 23 kids or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not super positive.
So, and it's not a big house.
No,
You know,
no. It's
so you're walking into this house with, say, 16 parents, moms and dads, and and then a whole bunch of kids.
Yes.
And you're all trying to live together while dealing with substance use and dealing with the kids.
Some people learning to be parents.
Yeah, exactly. And so they have a person who works with the kids individually, and he's wonderful.
He's amazing. He was my daughter's therapist. He was our family therapist. He was absolutely amazing.
He does play therapy. He has a room for them. I actually got to film one of his play therapy sessions, and he's such an amazing guy, and he sings to the kids, and he's wonderful. But so the moms and dads learn to be parents. The kids learn to be semi-normal kids again, and it all seems to work. So
With a lot of rules.
yeah.
Yes.
It's a tough
lot.
program.
It is.
But they all make sense. They all serve a purpose. It's a great house.
Yes.
And I don't try to promote Odyssey on this podcast, but we're the only program, I think, west of the Mississippi and maybe in the country that does fathers with kids, because everybody thinks of, well, kids, moms, but there are, especially when you're dealing with substance use, there are families where the dad's taking care of the kids. So.
And it gives dads an opportunity to get their kids back. If they've been taken from both mom and dad wants them or wants to get healthy and be a dad, it gives them the opportunity for that. And we are the only one west of the Mississippi. I think there's one in New York and South Carolina, but I know we're the only one. And we can take 3 dads at a time, I think.
And like we were talking earlier about how laws should change and lawmakers should support stuff like that. I mean, does that seem right that there's only one program west of the Mississippi to deal with a single dad dealing with kids? I mean, no.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I would like to grow mental health. I mean, we can't grow our capacity in our program. It would have to be like opening another house. But I don't know what Haddam has up his sleeve or not. But I mean, I know
it's very difficult to find, first of all, a facility to hold 16 women, or how many men do we? 16.
They're both 16.
And that's because of administrative rules why it's only 16.
Yeah.
And so you have to find a place where 16 people can live and go through that therapeutic program that fits maybe into a neighborhood, because you and I have dealt with neighborhood issues before where the women's mental health facility is. And so it's just really difficult to do.
Yeah. And you can't have more than 16 to deal with the mental health. They really need the one-on-one.
Sure.
The low, like you walk into one of the adult houses and it is chaos.
Right.
And
organized chaos, come on.
They can't handle there's just so much going on that it just is too activating for them. That our programs are very calm and quiet, and they can really get to work in it because it's so calm.
I much prefer going to your house than some other houses.
I like that.
So, yeah, we are out of time. Now you understand why I called you. You don't call yourself, but I call you an angel of mercy, and you've had an amazing life, and you're doing such great things right now. And the people that we talk to who have come out of your program are it's incredible. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Nicole, good to see you again.
You too.
Thanks for washing your hair and looking beautiful today.
I did it just for you.
Ah, well. And thank you for watching or listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals.